The Galactic Council chamber floated in the darkness of space like a massive crystal palace. Inside, representatives from 300 alien species gathered in their assigned seats. The chamber was built to impress visitors with its size and beauty. Today it felt more like a courtroom. Captain Ji-Won Park stood in the center of the circular floor. Above her, the seats rose in rings that reached toward the domed ceiling. Hundreds of eyes from dozens of different species watched her. Some looked curious. Most looked dismissive. A few looked hungry, like predators spotting easy prey. Ji-Won wore the dark blue uniform of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. Her black hair was tied back in a simple style. She kept her face calm even though her heart was beating fast. Behind her, Ambassador Hyun-Woo Lee sat in the human delegation area. He was an older man with gray hair and worried eyes. Next to him, Lieutenant Daeun Choi monitored a data tablet, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. High Prelate Zarthus rose from his elevated throne. He was a Vorkan, and he looked every bit the warrior his species was famous for being. He stood nearly 8 feet tall with armored skin that had a deep red color. His forearms ended in clawed hands. 2 eyes black as space itself stared down at Ji-Won with complete confidence. The Vorkine Empire controls 47 star systems. We have defeated every species that dared to challenge us for 300 years. The prelate's voice boomed through the chamber without need of speakers. His species could project sound through methods human scientists still did not fully understand. You humans are new to the galactic community. You have been members of this council for only 3 years. In that time, you have shown nothing but weakness. Ji-Won said nothing. She had been trained for this moment. Let him talk. Let him feel powerful. Information was more valuable than pride. Your species occupies 7 colony worlds, the prelate continued. These worlds sit in territory that rightfully belongs to the Vorkine Empire. We did not protest when you first settled them because we found your presence amusing, but now we have need of those systems. Therefore, I present you with our terms. Surrender 3 of your colony worlds immediately. The remaining 4 will pay tribute to the Vorkan Empire. You will provide us with 20% of all resources you extract. You will grant our ships free passage through all human territory. And you will acknowledge Vorkan authority over your military operations. The chamber filled with sounds. Some species made clicking noises with their mouths or breathing organs. Others remained silent, but Ji-Won could feel their attention sharpen. This was not unusual. The Vorkan had made similar demands to other species many times. Every species had accepted. The alternative was war, and the Vorkan had never lost a war. Ambassador Lee leaned forward to whisper something, but Ji-Won held up one hand. She had her orders directly from Earth. The politicians had debated for weeks. The military commanders had run thousands of simulations. In the end, everyone agreed on what needed to happen. Ji-Won looked up at the prelate. Her voice was clear and steady. On behalf of the United Earth Government and the people of humanity, I must respectfully decline your offer, High Prelate. The chamber went completely silent. Even the environmental system seemed quiet. Species that had been moving in their seats froze. Ambassador Lee closed his eyes for a moment, though he showed no other reaction. Lieutenant Choi's fingers stopped moving on her tablet. High Prelate Zarthus stared at Ji-Won. For several long seconds he did not move. Then slowly all 4 of his arms spread wide. You decline? That is correct, Ji-Won said. The colony worlds you mentioned were legally settled according to Galactic Council regulations. They are recognized as human territory by this council. Humanity will not surrender them. We will not pay tribute, and we will not acknowledge any foreign authority over our military. The prelate's armored skin rippled. It was a sign of anger in Vorkine body language. Do you understand what you have just done? Yes, Ji-Won replied. I believe I have refused an unreasonable demand from a foreign power. You have declared war, the prelate said. His voice had become quieter, which somehow made it more frightening. No species has ever refused the Vorkan Empire and survived. We have crushed civilizations that were thousands of years old. Your species has barely left your home planet. You have no significant military. Your technology is primitive. Your ships are slow and weak. What do you possibly think you can do against the might of the Vorkan Empire? Ji-Won allowed herself a small smile. I suppose we will find out, High Prelate. Chancellor Muriel, the leader of the Galactic Council, rose from her seat. She was a Siveri, a species known for diplomacy and wisdom. Her silver skin reflected the chamber's lights, and her large eyes showed concern. "Perhaps we should take a moment to discuss this matter more carefully. War benefits no one. Surely we can reach a peaceful solution." "There is nothing to discuss," the prelate said, still looking at Jiwan. "The human has made her choice. By the ancient laws of this council, I formally declare that a state of war now exists between the Vorkan Empire and the human species. Our fleets will begin military operations within 3 standard days. The humans have that long to reconsider their foolish decision. After that, we will take what we demanded by force." Jiwan bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that most species in the chamber recognized. "Thank you for your time, council members. The human delegation will now return to our vessel." She turned and walked toward the exit. Ambassador Li and Lieutenant Choi followed her. As they left, the chamber erupted in noise. Species argued with each other. Some spoke of human foolishness. Others discussed how they might profit from the coming war. A few, the more thoughtful ones, wondered why the humans seemed so calm about their apparent doom. Jiwan, Li, and Choi walked through the station's corridors in silence until they reached their shuttle. Only when the door sealed behind them did Ambassador Li speak. "I hope you know what you are doing, Captain." "Following orders, Ambassador," Jiwan replied. She sat in the pilot's seat and began the departure sequence. The shuttle detached from the Galactic Council station and turned toward the waiting human vessel, the Horizon Dawn. Lieutenant Choi looked up from her tablet. Message sent to Earth Fleet Command, encrypted through 7 different relays. No one will trace it. She paused. They responded already. Protocol Nightfall is authorized. All defense platforms are powering up. Admiral Kim sends his regards and says he will see you on the other side. Jiwan nodded. She looked out at the stars as the shuttle accelerated. Somewhere in that darkness, the Vorkan Empire was preparing for war. They were gathering their fleets, calling in their warriors, planning their invasion. They were confident because they had never lost before. They believed humans were weak because humans had carefully appeared weak. But humanity had not been idle during their 3 years on the Galactic Council. They had been watching, learning, and preparing. Every human diplomatic mission had included intelligence officers. Every trade vessel had carried sensors. Every colony had hidden military installations. Humanity knew the Vorkan better than the Vorkan knew themselves. The galaxy was about to learn an important lesson about humanity. Humans had spent 10,000 years fighting each other. They had refined warfare into a science. They had built weapons that could crack planets. They had fought wars that nearly destroyed their own species. And they had learned one critical truth: never start a fight with someone who has nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The Talon sector sat at the edge of human-controlled space. It contained 6 planets, 2 asteroid belts, and 17 mining stations. The people who lived there were mostly workers and their families. They extracted rare metals from the asteroids and farmed on the 2 habitable planets. It was a quiet sector, far from the major trade routes. Until today. Admiral Seojin Kim stood on the bridge of the battleship Eternal Resolve. He was a tall man with short gray hair and a face marked by years of military service. His uniform was crisp and clean, but his eyes showed he had not slept much in the past 3 days. Around him, dozens of officers worked at their stations, their voices low and professional. "Admiral, we have confirmed visual contact," said Commander Park, the ship's second officer. She was pointing at the main display screen. "The Vorkan First Fleet just entered the sector. Ship count is 307, mix of battleships, cruisers, and support vessels. They are moving in standard invasion formation." Admiral Kim studied the screen. The Vorkan ships appeared as red dots arranged in a pattern that had been used successfully for centuries. The big battleships formed the center, with smaller cruisers on the flanks and support ships in the rear. It was a formation designed to crush any defense through overwhelming force. "How long until they reach the colony planets?" 6 hours at current speed, Commander Park replied. "They are not trying to be subtle. They want us to see them coming. It is meant to cause fear." Admiral Kim nodded slowly. "Then let us give them something to fear. Activate Protocol Nightfall. All stations, battle status. Send the signal to Shadow Fleet." Throughout the Talon sector, things that had been hidden began to wake up. Defense platforms that looked like ordinary asteroids suddenly powered on. Weapon systems that had been dormant for 3 years ran through their activation sequences. Sensor arrays that had pretended to be mining equipment started tracking the incoming Vorkan fleet. Commander Yunahan sat in the captain's chair of the stealth frigate Shadow Dancer. Her ship was small compared to the Admiral's battleship, but it had advantages that bigger ships could not match. The Shadow Dancer used technology that bent light and radiation around its hull. To any sensor system in the galaxy, it simply did not exist. "Signal received from the Admiral," said her communications officer. "We are authorized to engage," Yuna smiled. It was not a kind smile. "About time. All ships move to attack positions. Remember your training. Stay invisible. Hit hard, move fast." Her fingers danced over her control panel. 23 other stealth frigates acknowledged her orders. Aboard the Vorkane flagship Bloodied Honor, Fleet Marshal Draven watched the human sector with satisfaction. He was an old warrior, scarred from 100 battles. His red armor was decorated with symbols showing his many victories. He had fought the Kresh Swarms, the Tarlok Kingdoms, and the unified clans of Dex. He had never lost a battle. This would be his easiest victory yet. "Marshal, our sensors show minimal activity in the sector," reported his tactical officer. "We detect 3 human defensive stations and perhaps a dozen small patrol ships. No sign of their main fleet." Draven laughed, a deep sound that echoed through the bridge. "They run and hide like prey animals. Increase speed. I want to reach their colonies before nightfall. We will broadcast the destruction of their first world to the entire galaxy. Let all species see what happens when you defy the Vorkan Empire." The Vorkan fleet accelerated. 300 ships moving as one, confident in their power. They had crushed bigger fleets than anything the humans could field. Their shields could withstand any known weapon. Their warriors were bred for combat. This would not be a battle. It would be an execution. That was when everything went wrong. The asteroids opened fire first. What the Vorkan had thought were simple rocks suddenly revealed themselves as massive railgun platforms. These weapons used magnetic acceleration to fire projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The rounds were simple metal slugs, but at those velocities, they hit with the force of nuclear weapons. The first salvo destroyed 7 Vorkan cruisers before their shields could adjust. The second salvo killed 4 more. The third salvo targeted the flagship itself, forcing Draven to order emergency evasive maneuvers. "Return fire," Draven shouted. "Destroy those platforms." But his weapons officers were having problems. The platforms were small, fast-moving, and there were hundreds of them scattered through the asteroid belt. For every platform they destroyed, 2 more appeared. Then the missiles arrived. They came from every direction at once, thousands of them, each one guided by artificial intelligence that could think faster than any organic brain. The missiles worked together like a swarm, coordinating their attacks to overwhelm Vorkan defenses. They found weak points in shields. They targeted specific systems. They learned from each failed attack and adapted. Vorkan ships began dying in clusters. Explosions blossomed across the fleet like deadly flowers. Marshal Draven gripped his command chair as his flagship shuddered from multiple hits. "This is impossible." "Where are these weapons coming from?" His tactical officer was frantically working his controls, his 4 arms moving in a blur. "Marshal, we are detecting massive electronic warfare. Our communications are being jammed. Our sensors are giving false readings. Our shield harmonics are being analyzed and exploited. This is not primitive technology. This is more advanced than anything in our databases." Commander Yunahan's stealth frigate struck next. They appeared from nowhere, already firing. Their weapons were different from the missiles and railguns. They used focused particle beams that could cut through armor like a hot knife through butter. Each frigate would appear, fire, and disappear before the Vorkan could respond. "Target the command ships," Yuna ordered. Her crew worked with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this moment for months. Every simulation had been based on real Vorkan tactics. Every weapon had been designed specifically to counter Vorkan defenses. The humans had done their homework. Admiral Kim watched the battle from his position several light minutes away. His battleship group had not even needed to engage yet. The automated defenses and stealth frigates were doing all the work. Execute Phase 2. Target their support vessels. Cut off their ability to repair and resupply. More railgun fire lanced out from hidden positions. The Vorkane support ships, which carried repair equipment and extra ammunition, exploded one after another. Without support, the warships could not sustain a long battle. The Vorkane were being systematically dismantled. Marshal Draven realized he was losing. In 30 years of command, he had never experienced anything like this. The humans were not fighting like any species he knew. There was no honor in their tactics, no grand ship-to-ship combat. They struck from shadows, used automated weapons, and exploited every weakness with ruthless efficiency. All ships retreat, he ordered. Fall back to the jump point. We must regroup. But even retreat was costly. Human missiles chased the fleeing Vorkan ships. More railgun fire cut down stragglers. Of the 307 ships that had entered the Talon sector, only 18 escaped. The battle lasted 47 minutes. Commander Yuna Han brought her stealth frigates back to their hidden base. Her crew was exhausted but pleased. They had performed perfectly. Not a single human ship had been lost. She opened a communication channel to Admiral Kim. Shadow Fleet reporting. All objectives achieved. 0 casualties on our side. Well done, Commander, the Admiral replied. Return to base and prepare for Phase 3. This war is just beginning. Admiral Kim turned to his communications officer. Send a message to Vorkan Space. Use their own diplomatic channels so we know they will receive it. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Tell them this. Withdraw all forces from human territory immediately. This is your only warning. The next battle will not be in our space. It will be in yours. Across the galaxy, species that had been watching the battle fell silent. The humans had not just won. They had crushed the supposedly invincible Vorkan First Fleet with apparent ease, and everyone realized the same thing at once. The humans had been hiding. They had been preparing, and they had just announced to the entire galaxy that humanity was not prey. Humanity was the predator. The battle footage spread across the galactic networks within hours. Every species that had communication technology watched the destruction of the Vorkan First Fleet. The recordings showed everything. Vorkan warships exploding, automated human weapons appearing from nowhere, stealth ships that sensors could not detect, an entire invasion force reduced to burning wreckage in less than an hour. In the Galactic Council chamber, Chancellor Miriel called an emergency session. Her silver skin had lost some of its usual glow. She looked tired and worried. The chamber filled quickly. Every species wanted answers. When Ambassador Hunwoo Lee entered the room, the noise level dropped. Hundreds of eyes followed him to the human delegation area. The Chancellor rose and spoke in a voice that carried through the entire chamber. Ambassador Lee, this council requires an explanation. 3 days ago, humanity was considered the weakest species in the galaxy. Your technology was rated as primitive. Your military was thought to be minimal, yet we have all seen what happened in the Talon sector. How is this possible? Ambassador Lee stood slowly. He was a diplomat by training, but he had served in the Earth military before joining the Foreign Service. He knew exactly what he was about to say because it had been planned months ago. Chancellor, members of the Council, the answer is simple. We lied, the chamber erupted. Species shouted in a dozen languages. Some demanded justice. Others wanted to know what else humanity had hidden. A few species, the smarter ones, were already calculating how this changed galactic politics. The Chancellor had to activate the sound dampening system to restore order. Please explain yourself, Ambassador, the Chancellor said. Her voice was cold now. This council does not appreciate deception. Ambassador Lee activated a holographic display. It showed a timeline of human history. I would like to introduce someone who can explain better than I can. Professor Taeyang Shin, our chief xenohistorian. Professor Shin was a younger man with sharp eyes and a confident manner. He stepped forward and bowed to the council. Thank you, Chancellor. What I'm about to tell you is not secret. Everything I will show you is available in human historical records. We simply never volunteered the information and no one asked the right questions. The hologram changed to show ancient Earth. Humanity has been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We have records of organized warfare going back to the earliest civilizations. While many of you were exploring space and making first contact with other species, we were fighting each other. We fought over land, over resources, over ideas, over religions. We fought until our planet was covered in weapons. The hologram showed images of human warfare through the ages. Swords and shields, cannons and rifles, tanks and aircraft, nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons. The species in the council chamber watched in growing horror. We almost destroyed ourselves, Professor Shin continued. Multiple times we came close to extinction. We developed weapons that could end all life on our planet. We built machines that could kill millions in seconds. We created viruses that could wipe out entire populations, and we used these things, not against alien invaders, against each other. A representative from the Kelvari cluster, a peaceful species known for their artistic achievements, stood up. This is barbaric. How can you speak of such things as if you are proud? I am not proud, Professor Shin replied. I am being honest. Yes, our history is violent. Yes, we have done terrible things. But that history taught us lessons. We learned how to fight. We learned how to win. We learned how to survive when everything was against us. And when we finally united as one species, we brought all that knowledge with us. The hologram shifted to show human space vessels. When we joined the Galactic Council 3 years ago, we made a decision. We would observe before we acted. We would learn about galactic politics before revealing our capabilities. So we sent diplomatic ships that looked peaceful. We built colonies that appeared vulnerable. We traded openly and spoke of cooperation. But that was not all we did, Ambassador Lee added. Every human vessel that traveled through galactic space carried sophisticated sensors. Every diplomatic mission included intelligence officers. Every trade agreement gave us access to new information. For 3 years, we mapped every major power in the galaxy. We studied your tactics, your strategies, your weaknesses. Merchant Lord Quelix of the Mernati Consortium stood. He was a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline shell. His voice was like musical tones. My traders reported unusual activity from human vessels. We thought they were simply curious newcomers. You are telling us it was espionage? We prefer the term intelligence gathering, Ambassador Lee said. And in fairness, you were doing the same to us. Your traders were asking questions about human technology and military strength. The difference is that you believed the answers we gave you. Quelix made a sound like chimes in the wind. It was laughter. We thought you were primitive because you wanted us to think that. Clever. Dangerous, but clever. High Prelate Zarthus appeared via hologram. The Vorkane leader had not attended in person since the defeat. His image showed he had aged. The red color of his armored skin had dulled. You hid like cowards, he said. There is no honor in deception. Ambassador Lee looked directly at the prelate's image. You threatened us with slavery or death. You gave us 3 days to surrender our worlds. You sent 300 ships to invade our territory. And you speak to us of honor? We did what we had to do to survive. That is the most honorable thing any species can do. The Chancellor raised one hand for silence. Ambassador Lee, what are humanity's intentions now? You have demonstrated military superiority over one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. What will you do with this power? Before the ambassador could answer, an alarm sounded. A junior Savari aide rushed into the chamber and whispered urgently to the Chancellor. Muriel's eyes widened. She looked at the council with clear concern. I have just received a report. The Vorkan Empire has mobilized its 2nd and 3rd fleets. Over 2,000 warships are gathering at their home system. High Prelate Zarthus, is your empire planning to continue this war? The prelate's hologram stood straighter. The Vorkan Empire does not surrender. We do not negotiate with those who deceive us. We will gather our full strength and crush the human threat once and for all. This time, we will not underestimate them. Our entire military might will descend upon human space like a storm. Professor Shin shook his head. He looked genuinely sad. You do not understand. The First Fleet was not defeated because you underestimated us. It was defeated because you cannot win. Your tactics are 300 years old. Your weapons are designed for fighting species that value honor over victory. Your military exists to intimidate, not to actually fight a determined enemy. Zarthus roared, a sound that made several council members flinch. You know nothing of the Vorkan. We have conquered 47 systems. We have defeated every challenge. We are the finest warriors in the galaxy. No, Ambassador Lee said quietly. You are the finest warriors in a galaxy that had forgotten what real warfare looks like. You fight for glory and territory. We fight for survival. You train soldiers to be brave and honorable. We train soldiers to be efficient and deadly. You build weapons to impress others. We build weapons to end threats permanently. Merchant Lord Quelix spoke again. I have information that may be relevant. My consortium has been monitoring human activity across the galaxy. In the past 3 years, human civilian vessels have visited every major system. They claim to be tourists and traders. But we now know they were mapping military installations, recording defense patterns, and identifying strategic weaknesses. The council chamber fell silent as species realized what that meant. The humans had not just been preparing to defend their own space. They had been preparing to strike anywhere in the galaxy. Captain Ji-Won Park, who had been sitting quietly in the human delegation area, stood and spoke for the first time. With respect to the Council, I have a message from Admiral Seojin Kim. He asked me to deliver it if the Vorkane refused to stand down. She activated her communication device. A hologram appeared showing star charts of Vorkan space. These are the locations of every major Vorkan military base, shipyard, and command center. We know where your supplies are stored. We know which systems contain your reserve fleets. We know the exact positions of your defense platforms. We even know which commanders are stationed at which locations. The hologram zoomed in on one system in particular. This is Vorkan Prime, your homeworld. Admiral Kim is currently preparing to move the entire Earth defense fleet to this location. Not to attack your colonies, not to fight your fleets, but to blockade your home system until you agree to peace. High Prelate Zarthus stared at the hologram. Impossible. Vorkan Prime is protected by orbital defense platforms, planetary shields, and 2 full fleets. No force in the galaxy could breach those defenses. Ji-Won smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. Your first fleet thought the same thing about the Talon sector. How did that work out? The Admiral will arrive at Vorkan Prime in 72 hours. You have until then to withdraw your forces and agree to peace talks. If you refuse, the siege begins. And unlike you, we are very patient. We can wait months or years if necessary. Can your people say the same? 4 weeks had passed since the siege of Vorkan Prime began. The human blockade remained in position, quiet and patient. Supply ships were allowed through for food and medicine, but nothing else. No military vessels. No construction materials. No reinforcements. The Vorkan Empire was slowly being strangled, not through violence but through isolation. The Galactic Council chamber was fuller than it had ever been. Every species that could send a representative had done so. Some came out of curiosity. Others came out of fear. All of them wanted to see what would happen when President Min Ho-yoon of the United Earth government arrived to address the council. Chancellor Muriel called the session to order. Her silver skin had regained its normal glow, but her eyes still showed concern. The galaxy had changed in 1 month. Power structures that had been stable for centuries were now uncertain. Species that had felt safe now wondered if they were. Next, President Yoon entered the chamber, with Ambassador Hyun-woo Lee and Captain Ji-Won Park. The president was a man in his 60s with gray hair and a calm expression. He wore a simple dark suit rather than anything military. He walked to the center of the floor and bowed respectfully to the council. "Thank you for allowing me to address this council," President Yoon began. His voice was steady and clear. "I come here today to speak about peace. I know many of you are concerned about human intentions. I know you wonder what we will do now that we have proven our military capabilities. So let me be direct and honest with you all. Humanity does not want an empire. We do not seek to conquer other species or control their worlds. We came to the stars hoping to find friends and partners. We joined this council 3 years ago with peaceful intentions. Those intentions have not changed." A representative from the Kelrathi Assembly stood. "Then why did you hide your true strength? Why did you deceive this council?" "Because history taught us to be careful," President Yoon replied. "On Earth we have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. It means you should be diplomatic and peaceful, but also prepared to defend yourself if necessary. We spoke softly for 3 years. When the Vorkan threatened us, we showed them the stick." High Prelate Zarthus appeared via hologram. He looked older and more tired than before. The siege had taken its toll on him. His empire was suffering. His warriors were restless. His people were asking difficult questions about why their leader had started a war they could not win. "President Yoon," the prelate said quietly, "you asked me to come here to discuss peace terms. I have considered your offer carefully. I have consulted with my advisors and my people, and I have reached a decision." The chamber fell completely silent. Every being present leaned forward slightly, not wanting to miss a word. "The Vorkane Empire formally withdraws all territorial claims against human space," Zarthus continued. "We acknowledge human sovereignty over their colony worlds. We agree to a non-aggression treaty, and we request that the blockade of Vorkan Prime be lifted." President Yoon bowed his head slightly. "Your request is granted, High Prelate. Admiral Kim has orders to begin withdrawing our forces immediately. We will also provide assistance in repairing the damage to your orbital facilities. not as tribute or payment, but as a gesture of goodwill between equals. The prelate paused before speaking again. President Yoon, I must ask you something. Captain Park told me that my people would never defeat yours. Was she telling the truth? Could the Vorkan Empire never have won this war? President Yoon considered his answer carefully. High Prelate, warfare is not about individual courage or honor. It is about resources, technology, strategy, and will. Your warriors are brave. Your ships are well built. But humanity has fought itself for 10,000 years. We have refined warfare into a science. We do not enjoy it, but we are very good at it. Could you have won? Perhaps if circumstances had been different. But it would have cost both our species dearly. Zarthus nodded slowly. Then I'm glad we chose peace. My people have much to learn from yours. Perhaps in time we can learn together. Chancellor Mirel rose from her seat. This council formally recognizes the peace treaty between humanity and the Vorkan Empire. Let it be recorded that today marks a new era in galactic relations. She turned to President Yoon. However, I must address the concerns of many species here. What are humanity's long-term intentions? You have proven you can project military power across the galaxy. What will you do with that capability? President Yoon looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of species. We will defend our territory and our allies. We will engage in peaceful trade and cultural exchange. We will contribute to galactic science and exploration. We will participate in this council as equals, not as supplicants or conquerors, and we will respond to threats with overwhelming force if necessary, but we will not seek out conflict. Merchant Lord Quelix spoke next. Many species here are interested in establishing closer relations with humanity. Your technology is clearly advanced. Your trade goods would be valuable. Are humans open to new partnerships? Very much so, Ambassador Lee answered. We have much to learn from the galactic community. We are interested in cultural exchanges, scientific cooperation, and fair trade agreements. Humanity never wanted to be isolated. We only wanted to be safe. Professor Taeyang Shin stood and addressed the council. If I may add something, Chancellor, the galaxy operates on assumptions about power and military strength. Those assumptions have been challenged by recent events. Many species here have never experienced real warfare. The Vorkan were considered unbeatable because no one had seriously tested them. Perhaps this is an opportunity for all of us to reconsider how we approach galactic politics. A representative from the peaceful Drayan collective spoke. What the professor suggests is concerning. Are we to live in fear of hidden military capabilities? How can we trust any species now? Captain Ji-won Park stepped forward. With respect, trust is built through actions, not assumptions. Humanity could have destroyed Vorkan Prime. We had the capability and the opportunity, but we chose a blockade instead. We could have conquered Vorkan space while their fleets were trapped at their homeworld. We chose peace instead. Our actions should speak louder than our weapons. Chancellor Muriel nodded slowly. Captain Park makes a valid point. Humanity has shown restraint when they could have shown cruelty. That is worth acknowledging. She turned to the full council. I propose that we formally recognize humanity as a full member species with all rights and protections. No longer newcomers, but equals. All in favor? The vote was overwhelming. Every species except for a few traditional Vorkan allies voted yes. Even High Prelate Zarthus cast his vote in favor. The message was clear. The galaxy had accepted humanity as a major power. After the formal session ended, President Yoon walked through the station's observation deck with Ambassador Lee and Captain Park. Through the massive windows, they could see dozens of alien vessels docked at the station. Some belonged to species that had ignored humanity for 3 years. Now they were all requesting meetings and trade discussions. We did it, Ambassador Lee said quietly. We established humanity's position without becoming conquerors. That was always the goal. President Yoon nodded. But we cannot forget the cost. Good soldiers died in the Talon sector and at Vorkan Prime. Their sacrifice bought us this peace. We honor them by using it wisely. In orbit around Vorkan Prime, Admiral Seojun Kim supervised the fleet's withdrawal. Human engineers worked alongside Vorkan technicians to repair damaged stations. It was strange to see yesterday's enemies working together, but that was the nature of peace. You did not have to like your neighbors, but you could learn to live with them. Commander Yuna Han and her Shadow Fleet returned to Earth to a hero's welcome. Parades were held in major cities. Political leaders gave speeches about humanity's great victory. But Yuna knew the truth. They had not won a victory. They had avoided a tragedy. War was never something to celebrate, even when you came out ahead. Captain Soman Kang returned to her carrier group's home base. Her pilots were exhausted but proud. They had performed perfectly under pressure. Not a single fighter drone had malfunctioned. Not a single targeting system had failed. Years of training had paid off. But Soman hoped they would never need to use those skills again. General Eunbi Park debriefed her special operations teams. Every mission had succeeded. Every objective had been achieved. But some of her soldiers had not come home. She read the casualty reports and made sure each name was remembered. They had done their duty, and humanity owed them a debt that could never be repaid. Weeks turned into months. The galaxy adapted to its new reality. Trade routes shifted toward human space. Species that had ignored Earth now sent diplomats and scientists. Universities across the galaxy requested human professors to teach military history and strategy. The lessons of the Vorkan conflict became case studies in every military academy. High Prelate Zarthus worked to rebuild his empire's reputation. The Vorkan would never again be considered invincible, but they could be respected for how they handled defeat. They honored their treaty. They cooperated with human engineers. They even sent warriors to train with human forces, learning new tactics and strategies. Pride was a powerful thing, but survival was more important. Vorkan Prime was the jewel of the Empire. The planet glowed red and gold in the light of its sun. 3 moons orbited overhead, each one covered in military installations. Around the planet floated 6 massive defense platforms, each capable of destroying entire fleets. Orbital shipyards stretched across thousands of kilometers, building new warships even as the old ones prepared for battle. On the surface, billions of Vorkine citizens went about their lives. The capital city of Drakenhold rose from the planet's largest continent, like a mountain made of metal and stone. At its peak, the Imperial Palace looked down on everything. Inside that palace, High Prelate Zarthus stood before a holographic display showing his assembled fleets. The Second Fleet has completed final preparations, reported Admiral Krex, commander of Vorkan Home Defense. The Third Fleet reports ready status. Combined strength, 2,143 vessels. Ground forces number 15 million warriors. Orbital defenses are at maximum power. Our planetary shield can withstand sustained bombardment for months. Vorkan Prime is unconquerable. Zarthus studied the display. His forearms were crossed, a sign of determination. Tomorrow, both fleets will depart for human space. We will not make the same mistakes as the First Fleet. We will travel in tighter formation. We will maintain constant sensor sweeps. We will assume every asteroid is a weapon. The humans caught us by surprise once. That will not happen again. Admiral Krex bowed. The humans think they can frighten us by threatening our homeworld. They do not understand Vorkine honor. We do not fear death. We welcome the chance to prove ourselves in battle. Let them come. We will destroy them, the prelate nodded. But then an aide rushed into the command center. His armor showed signs of panic, which was unusual for a Vorkan. High Prelate, our long-range sensors have detected multiple jump signatures. Ships are entering our system. Many ships. Admiral Krex moved to a sensor station. His eyes widened. Impossible. Those readings show over 500 vessels, and they are not at the edge of the system. They jumped directly to our defense perimeter. How did they bypass our outer sensor network? The answer became clear moments later. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation around Vorkine Prime. They had not approached slowly from the system's edge like a normal invasion force. They had calculated jump coordinates that brought them right to the planet's doorstep. It was a maneuver that required perfect navigation and complete knowledge of the local space. Admiral Seojun Kim stood on the bridge of the Eternal Resolve and watched Vorkine Prime fill the main view screen. Around his flagship, the entire Earth Defense Fleet held position. Battleships, carriers, cruisers, destroyers, support vessels, and dozens of stealth frigates. Every ship humanity could spare had made the jump. Open a channel to the Vorkan command, the Admiral ordered. Let us see if they are willing to talk before we begin. On Vorkane Prime, High Prelate Zarthus stared at the hologram showing Admiral Kim's face. The human looked calm, almost friendly. That only made the prelate angrier. You dare bring your fleet to our homeworld? This is an act of supreme arrogance. Our defenses will tear you apart. Admiral Kim smiled slightly. High Prelate, I am not here to destroy your planet. I am here to prevent a costly war that neither of us truly wants. Withdraw your fleet. Agree to peace terms, and we will leave your system without firing a single shot. This is the only offer you will receive, Zarthus roared. Never, the Vorkane Empire does not surrender. Admiral Krex, destroy them. The orbital defense platforms opened fire. Massive energy beams lanced out toward the human fleet. But the humans were ready. Their ships scattered in patterns that seemed random, but were actually carefully calculated. Point defense systems shot down incoming fire. Energy shields absorbed what the weapons could not stop. Return fire, Admiral Kim said quietly. Target military installations only. Avoid civilian areas. We are here to end a threat, not commit genocide. The human fleet responded with precision. Railgun fire struck defense platforms at their weak points. Missiles with electronic warfare capabilities confused Vorkane targeting systems. Captain Soman Kang's carrier Indomitable Will launched wings of fighter drones that moved with swarm intelligence. They attacked in coordinated patterns that no single pilot could achieve. Commander Yuna Han's stealth frigates did what they did best. They slipped past the defensive perimeter and began targeting shield generators. One by one, the installations that protected Vorkine Prime started failing. Not destroyed completely, but damaged enough to create gaps in coverage. The second and third Vorkine fleets moved to engage the human ships. 2,000 warships against 500. The numbers should have favored the Vorkane. But numbers meant less in modern warfare than training and technology. The Vorkine fought with courage and honor. The humans fought with cold efficiency. General Unbi Park led special operations teams that used small, fast ships to board Vorkine command stations. Once inside, they did not fight warriors. They sabotaged control systems. They infected computer networks with viruses. They caused chaos that pulled defenders away from the main battle. It was not honorable, but it was effective. Hours passed. The battle raged across the Vorkine home system. Ships burned on both sides. Humans died defending their positions. Vorkine warriors fought until their vessels were destroyed. But slowly, inevitably, the tide turned against the defenders. Human tactics were simply too advanced. Their weapons hit too hard. Their coordination was too perfect. Admiral Krex watched in growing despair as his fleet fell apart. Human vessels attacked from angles that should have been impossible. They targeted specific systems with perfect accuracy. They seemed to know exactly where every Vorkine ship would be before it moved. This is not warfare, he said to himself. This is extermination. High Prelate Zarthus stood in his command center and watched his empire crumble. The humans had not come to conquer. They had come to trap. His fleets were scattered and damaged. His defense platforms were offline. His orbital shipyards were burning. And worst of all, the human fleet was positioning itself in a blockade formation around the planet. Admiral Kim's face appeared on the hologram again. The battle has lasted 12 hours, High Prelate. In that time, you have lost 60% of your defending fleet. Your orbital defenses are neutralized. Your shipyards cannot build new vessels, and my fleet controls all access to your planet. Do you understand what has happened? Zarthus said nothing. He simply stared at the display. You are surrounded, Admiral Kim continued. Not defeated, but contained. Your people are safe. Your cities are intact, but nothing enters or leaves this system without my permission. No supply ships, no reinforcements, no trade, nothing. This blockade will continue until you agree to peace terms. We can wait months, years if necessary. Can you say the same? The prelate finally spoke. His voice was quiet, empty of the usual pride. What are your demands? Withdraw all claims against human territory. Sign a non-aggression treaty. Agree to respect human sovereignty. In exchange, we lift the blockade. We help repair your damaged stations and we establish trade relations. Your empire remains independent. Your people remain safe. But the war ends today. Zarthus looked around his command center. His officers were exhausted. Many were wounded. All of them looked to him for guidance. He thought of his people below, unaware of how close they had come to disaster. He thought of the hundreds of millions of Vorkane citizens across the empire, depending on him to keep them safe. For the first time in 300 years, the Vorkane Empire faced true defeat. Not in glorious battle, but in calculated strategy. The humans had proven something terrible. They did not need to destroy their enemies. They only needed to make fighting pointless. I need time to consider, the prelate said finally. You have 72 hours, Admiral Kim replied. After that, we begin rationing supply shipments to your planet. Not to harm your people, but to encourage your decision. Think carefully, High Prelate. This war was unnecessary. It can end peacefully. The choice is yours. The communication ended. Zarthus stood in silence for a long time. Around him, his command staff waited. Outside, the human fleet maintained its blockade. Above, the stars looked down on a galaxy that had changed forever. Admiral Seojin Kim sat back in his command chair. He felt tired but satisfied. The operation had gone almost exactly as planned. Casualties were minimal. The objective was achieved. Humanity had proven its point without unnecessary bloodshed. Captain Soman Kang's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, all carrier groups report successful recovery of fighter drones. Minimal losses. The blockade is secure. Good, the Admiral replied. Rotate our ships in shifts. Everyone needs rest. This might be a long wait. Commander Yuna Han brought her stealth frigates back to formation. She looked at Vorkan Prime through her view screen and wondered what the future held. Would the Vorkan see sense? Would they accept peace? Or would pride drive them to continue a war they could not win? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again.